Magnus, first, let me say happy birthday. And in that regard, what, if you may let us know, is your history of playing chess on your birthday, and how did that possibly affect your approach today or your mindset today in today's game?
I would have, of course, loved to have a rest day on the eve of my birthday, so that I could have at least a token celebration. Apart from that, I would say it's pretty good. I think I won at least one game in the World Cup against Almanatov, I believe, in 2005. And obviously, the match in 2016 was decided on my birthday in the tiebreak. So it's going to take a lot for me to have bad recollections of me playing on my birthday, even though I lost to So last year.
Jan, did this matter to you at all that it was Magnus's birthday? As chess players have superstitions. Your experience on your birthday and how that might have affected today.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. My big goal was not to forget to congratulate Magnus. Yeah. I mean, at least after the game. Yeah. So once again, congratulations. But as for me, I think it was very different. So I believe in childhood I played few games on my birthday, but it was. I mean, it never was easy or something. Yes. So in general, I think. Trying to recall this in the memory, it was like some another game, and yeah, normally it only affects of that you are basically having no party because yeah, you know, you're going to play the next day or something. Yeah.
Magnus, this is your second white today. Your expectation about the Petrov, it's not traditional opening that Jan plays. Were you surprised at all by it?
No, it was one of the main openings that I expected, seeing that he played it in the candidates, and also in the first black game he went for a more classical approach rather than a sharp one. So it was very much expected. Couldn't know obviously which exact Petrov line he was gonna go for, but Petrov in itself was very much expected.
And your feeling about the opening you got?
What can I say? I tried something concrete and it didn't work. But that's, I think, normal results. I didn't expect him, obviously, to have missed the line that I played completely. But yeah, in some other iterations there can be a lot of difficult decisions to make for black, but I think the way that he played, there was just there are some different tries, but there's just nothing. And state of modern chess, not much else to say. You
did, though, at the end look like you were working like overtime, sweating to try to get something at the end. You looked like you were really trying very hard before you finally stopped. Why was that?
I think it sometimes happens at World Championships that you work a lot before the match, and you work a lot during the match and openings and such, and somehow this makes you work less over the board. My approach was very clear there, that I didn't think particularly that I had anything, but I have 2 hours for the game, so I should spend them all looking for whatever chances can be found.
Jan, did you feel like you were in any difficulty at any point during this game?
Well, actually the line which happened is, I guess, should be known by many who play Petrov. Yeah, so it's one of the lines which are quite principled. Despite this, I believe knight h4 is a very interesting try, but perhaps I even wanted to play this as white one day. Yeah. But in general, yeah, the task was more or less about not to mix up things here and not to, I don't know, not to do something stupid, because as far as I know, this line is more or less, to say so, safe for black. So of course I was checking twice everything and also calculating a lot, but in general, yeah, I think this is quite safe.
draw for this game satisfying result?
Well, since I played Petrov, indeed.
And for you, Magnus, second white took a shot, but again a draw. Is this at all frustrating, or still early in the match?
No, it's okay. I've started with a lot more draws than this earlier, and when you play a forest line as today, you don't expect to hit very often, but the idea is to hit once in a while, take your opponent by surprise, and the other times you're usually going to be very safe. Yeah, I obviously I would have loved to win. Would have loved to find more chances than I did, but I think overall, yeah, it's a normal result against a well-prepared opponent.
We'll take our first question from reporters in the room, please.
Well, I'm Rune from the Chess24 Global podcast, and of course the entire Chess24 team wishes you a happy birthday, Magnus. My question is for you. I'm sure that chess fans all over the world hopes for you, that you can go out and celebrate and have a very nice birthday. Will this be possible for you, or do you have to just work in order to prepare for tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm playing tomorrow. I feel like general idea of a World Championship match is that you celebrate after you've hopefully won.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah, Sagar Shah from Chesswiz India. My question is to Magnus. First of all, happy birthday. You played the move Knight H4, which was a first new move. There were games until A5, and then Nepo's moves were pretty like straightforward, G6 and so on. So what were you hoping for with in which situation would you have
There are insanely complicated lines. The approach that he chose is not the only one that black can choose, and in other variations it's insanely complicated and really risky for black. And to be honest, the one he chooses, it looks really risky to leave the knight on f8 and bank everything on the a pawn. If you've miscalculated something, you just lose without any chances. But it's a lot easier, of course, when you've studied it and you know that it's a draw and you can kind of work it out from there. But believe me, there are many other options for black that lead to much more complications than what happened in the game. I think what he did was just very sensible. An approach that looks a bit dubious at first, since your knight's going to be locked in, but with with concrete calculation you can make it work, and that's how you usually solve your opening problems. You try to avoid the lines where you have to remember everything and try to choose something that you can sort of remember the main points from.
Thank you.
Mike Klein with Chess.com. My question is for Grandmaster Magnus Carlsen. As the journalist corps continues to speculate about who your seconds are, and I'm sure you're too cagey to reveal, you've done this so many times before. Can you reveal what's the tenor in your camp? Is it pretty normal from the first 4 World Championships to this one? Or do you notice your team perhaps with different emotions about your openings and what kind of positions you've been getting?
Yeah, so I don't really understand the gist of your question. I think people have emotions of their own. Those who work with me for me, but I'm the one who has to play after all. So their emotions are if not unimportant, they're not really a relevant factor to me. I would say so far there's very, very little to report in any case.
Hello, Rakesh from chess.com. Magnus, firstly, a very happy birthday. We've seen 4 draws, but how did it go on the rest day in the soccer or basketball?
Yeah, so I was on the winning team the whole time in football. Don't know if they threw intentionally. If they did, I don't really care. But it definitely raised my spirits, so that's good.
Ole Kristianstrøm, VG Norway. Happy birthday to Magnus. A question for both. Is this the best way of deciding a world champion, or could it be other ways of doing it, like, for example, the FIFA World Cup way, or as an ordinary chess tournament, or whatever?
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to say because I believe the importance of traditions in chess is really big, and I guess whatever works, you shouldn't like try to make it work better. Yeah, I mean, in order not to break it. So I believe this system with the matches is more or less fair. But I mean, of course, it has some obvious drawbacks because it's like not being played yearly and so on. Yeah, but I mean, well, it's, you know, we can discuss it like the whole night.
Magnus?
There's a saying that if you don't have anything nice to say, you shouldn't say anything at all. So I'm going to invoke that particular saying right here.
Hi, Saravanan from ChessBase. My question to Ian. When you played A5 and Magnus played knight h4 pretty fast, you showed a look of surprise on the board. Were you not really expecting this? Was it part of your preparation?
Well, only thing I knew that this is, I mean, even without, let's say, analyzing his position, it's obvious, yeah, that playing knight h4 and letting the pawn leave on a5, yeah, as a passed pawn, which is protected well by pawn on b6, is quite risky. So that's what you can figure out without preparation. But yeah, fortunately, I knew the idea, and more or less, I could remember what to do. So I mean, of course, I was kind of surprised, but because I mean, this is one of the, to say so, sidelines, but it's very principled at the same time, yeah, and it's better to it's of course better to remember your moves instead of finding them out of the board.
If I can follow that up, you played rook f c8 after a minute thought or so. Till that point, also, did you go by your memory, or did you come up with on the board?
Well, I guess I wasn't quite sure what was the correct move after knight e8 check. Immediately king h8, king h6, or king g8. But I remember that king g8 is also just fine. And then, okay, I believe more or less until the last move, it's... I'm not quite sure, but I think I have seen something like this.
Thank you.
Alexander Евстигнеев, TV channel Russia One. My question is for Jan. По традиции можно по-русски, если удобно. Традиционный, опять же, вопрос. 4-я ничья. Как оцениваете? И складывается, может сложиться впечатление, что поскольку цена ошибки настолько высока, что вы немножко оба, довольно активно играя, немножко искусственно сдерживаете себя и осторожничаете. Вот что по этому поводу можете сказать?
Ну, как 4-я ничья, но сегодня фактически ничья получилась сразу же из дебюта, да, то есть тут такая линия, что, в общем, белые спрашивают, если черные все помнят, то получается ничья. Это довольно частая история вот в современных шахматах, на самом деле, такая так называемая проверка. Вот, ну и в целом, мне кажется, каждый играет вот настолько, насколько позволяет соперник. То есть, ну, очень сложно в дебюте завязать борьбу. То есть, да, ну вот сегодняшняя партия, например, ну, может быть, не самая яркая, но все же тому подтверждение, да, что, в принципе, там новая интересная идея за белых, но, в общем, она уже тоже как бы оказалась новой, ну, не для всех.
Спасибо.
Grandmaster Hans Zeman with Chessable. My question to Jan is, over the past sort of few years, we've seen you make big strides and big improvements, and I've noticed sort of a change in your opening style, and I think you've been known to be sort of like a very sharp player, maybe utilizing some less classical opening choices. But recently, with the Petrov and other choices, I'm trying to understand, is this change in opening style, do you think this has been critical to your recent success?
Well, basically, it doesn't matter what do you play if you know what you're doing. Yeah. So, well, in that case, I mean, you could name basically one of like 3 or 4 very solid openings with black, and if you, let's say, study them by heart, you can be, I believe, more or less successful. But I mean, speaking about my more or less recent results, it's more about the general approach, other like picking some particular openings.
Yeah. And if I may continue what Magnus said about the football he played yesterday, as one of your opponents, do you think that anyone was afraid to go too hard on you if they were to injure you? Because I certainly did not want to be the guy who injured you before the next day.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think a lot of people would indeed have that mentality that they would not want to injure somebody like important to a lot of people. I've played with some professional footballers in my life. And my approach then was very different. Like I always felt it would be a fun story if I injured them when they played on their spare time. Yeah, that's so I always went like extra hard against them, it gave me an edge because it forced them to shy away instead. So a little tip there.
Yeah, I'll try to give you more of a challenge next time, but thank you.
Thank you.
Anastasia Karlovic, Chessbase. Hello, everyone. Magnus, happy birthday. And my question is actually about your birthday, because I don't know if you know that Winston Churchill was born the same day as you. And do you think you have something common with a former Prime Minister of Great Britain? The first question, or maybe you remember some of his quotes or expressions.
Yeah, I mean, there was this quote from Churchill on one of his opponents. I think that he was a very modest man, and he had great reasons to be modest. So I would say for my opponent that he's not a modest man, and with good reason.
Okay, thank you. And one more question also for Jan. Which wishes would you like to give to Magnus today on his birthday?
I mean, just enjoy what he's doing and like be healthy, happy, lucky, and all the best.
Thank you.
A question for Jan. How is this championship match going according to what you planned? Are you playing better, worse, or according to plan?
I might probably tell this when the match will be over.
We'll give 2 more questions, please.
Mike Flanagan with chess.com. Question again for Magnus. This may sound like a silly question, but it's actually quite serious. A lot of athletes, when they get into their 30s, the recovery time is lessened. And I've seen you play sports during World Championships for 3 or 4 hours at a time. So does your body feel any different after these rest days when you do a lot of sports?
Yeah, it's a really good question. There was one person in my team yesterday who had one task and one task only, which was to pull me away after set number of matches, so that I would not be too tired. So that's certainly something that I'm conscious of.
Any more questions?
Can I?
Please.
Magnus, in the end, you were thinking for 22 minutes for knight f6, also 34 minutes. Could you share some of the lines that you were looking at? Like, were there some opportunities?
Yeah, I was considering a lot of things like d6, king g2, followed by rook e8, also rook a2, followed by rook e3 after rook b3. Yeah, black just seemed to hold everywhere. I guess d6 was kind of the most obvious way to try and find something, but I didn't think it was close.
We just have one more question from the FIDE Chess Twitter page. You can send your questions in, and you may hear them here on the air. Magnus, to you, do you plan on sharing any of your birthday cake with Team Nepo?
Yeah, that's a weird question. First of all, I don't know if I'll have any. Maybe a little bit tomorrow. I think with the history of World Championship matches, I don't think you would accept any piece of food from the opposing team ever.
With that, we conclude the press conference. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Tomorrow's game will be at 16:30. It will be Game 5. Thank you, and have a good night.